Two. Whoop. That's loud. That's loud.
You're loud.
Test, 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 test. Test, test. Test.
I'm your Secret Service agent.
Can you hear me? Huh? Trades. Yeah. Trades, like any of the trades, like plumbing, electrical, construction. I think to a degree, engineering. I mean, it probably going to make engineers stupider, but
Yeah, I noticed they're really relying on it now to write reports and stuff. They all sound the same.
to code,
It's like,
yeah. Like the guys that work with me are already using it to write Visual Basic code, Python code. Fire department. Oh. Ambulance. How about now? All right. The wisdom of Christ. So last weekend, we looked at Christ as laying out some wisdom with his disciples. So he kind of escapes the crowd, takes a seat with his disciples, and begins describing essentially what it means to have a good life and to be a good person in relation to God. And that starts with, we were in Matthew 5. So he starts with being blessed are those who are poor in spirit. So those of basically, describing to his disciples, your accolades don't mean anything. You're a descendant of Abraham. That doesn't really mean anything. You're blessed when you realize how separated you are from God and how much you need God, how poor you are in your spirit, in your life, in your psyche. And then he says how poor or how blessed are those who mourn. So when you realize how poor you are in spirit, it should cause you to mourn for those, both for those who haven't come to that realization, and it should cause us to mourn too, given the vast separation between God's righteousness and our own. And again, both of these are really instilling a need for, that initial need to break down that barrier between us and God and come to a realization and remove that animosity between us and God, to come to a relationship. So to have a good life with God, to be blessed by God, be poor of spirit, and be mournful. Along with that, he says to his disciples, you're blessed when you are meek. So you're blessed when you're someone with confidence and strength, especially, the strength and knowledge and confidence that the Lord can instill, but you have the wisdom and understanding of knowing how to wield it. How do you use your knowledge and your confidence? Are you meek with it? Do you lord it over people? Or do you use it for the good of the kingdom? So how blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the land. Those who will rule in the kingdom will be exemplary. Exemplary. Is that right?
No.
Exemplary.
Thank you.
Will be exemplary
Keep putting heaven there.
in their meekness. And then also how blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, those who hunger for a life that lives under the parameters of God that God has established. So now we're going to look at mercy. How blessed are those who show mercy, for they will be shown mercy. I'm going to do quite a bit of reading. So I'm going to turn to Nahum. Nahum. All right, Nahum chapter 1. This is a prophecy about Nineveh. The book of the vision of Nahum, the Elkoshi. Adonai is a jealous and vengeful God. Adonai avenges. He knows how to be angry. Adonai takes vengeance on his foes and stores up wrath for his enemies. Adonai is slow to anger, but great in power, and he does not leave the guilty unpunished. Adonai's path is in the whirlwind and the storm, and the clouds are the dust of his feet. He rebukes the sea and leaves it dry. He dries up all the rivers. Bashan and the Carmel languish. The flower of the Lebanon withers. The mountains quake before him and the hills dissolve. The earth collapses in his presence, the world and everything living in it. Who can withstand his fury? Who can endure his fierce anger? His wrath is poured out like fire. The rocks broken to pieces before him. Adonai is good, a stronghold in time of trouble. He takes care of those who take refuge in him, but with an overwhelming flood, he will make an end of Nineveh's place, and darkness will pursue his enemies. What are you planning against Adonai? He is making an end of it. Trouble will not arise a second time, for like men drunk with liquor, they will be burned up like tangled thorns, like straw completely dry. Out of you, Nineveh, he came one who plots evil against Adonai, who counsels wickedness. Here's what Adonai says: though they may be many and strong, they will be cut down, they will pass, and though I have made you suffer, I will make you suffer no more. Now I will break his yoke from your necks and snap the chains that bind you. Adonai gave this order concerning you, and you will have no descendants to bear your name. From the house of your God I will cut off carved image and cast metal image. I will prepare your grave because you are worthless. Look, on the mountains are the feet of him who brings good news, proclaiming shalom. Keep your festivals, Judah, fulfill your vows. For Belial, which means a worthless or a good-for-nothing person, will never pass through you again. He has been completely destroyed. A destroyer has risen in front of your face. Guard the ramparts, keep watch on the road. Brace yourselves, marshal at all your strength. For Adonai is restoring the pride of Jacob, along with the pride of Israel, because the plunderers have plundered them and ravaged their vines. The shields of Nineveh's warriors are dyed red. The soldiers are wearing scarlet. The steel of the chariots flashes like fire as they prepare for battle. The cypress spears are poisoned. The chariots rush madly about in the streets, jostling each other in the open places. Their appearance is like torches. They run here and there like lightning. The king of Nineveh assigns his officers. They stumble as they march. They hurry to its wall and set up shields to protect the battering ram. The gates of the rivers are opened, and the palace melts away. Its mistress is stripped and carried away. Her handmaids moan. They sound like doves as they beat their breasts. Nineveh is like a pool whose water ebbs away. Stop, stop, but none of it goes back. Plunder the silver, plunder the gold. There is no end to the treasure, weighed down with precious things. She is void, vacant, she is made bare. Hearts are melting, knees are knocking, every stomach is churning, every face is drained of color. What has become of the lion's den, the cave where the young lions fed, where lion and lioness walked with their cubs, and no one made them afraid? The lion would tear up food for his cubs and strangle prey for his lioness. He used to fill his calves with prey, his lairs with torn flesh. I am against you, says Adonai. Her chariots I will send up in smoke. The sword will consume your lion cubs. I will destroy your prey from the earth, and your voices will be heard no more. Woe to the city of blood, steeped in lies, full of prey, with no end to the plunder. The crack of the whip, the rattle of wheels, galloping horses, jolting chariots, cavalry charging, swords flashing, spears glittering, and hosts of slain, heaps of bodies. There's no end to the corpses. They stumble over their corpses. Because of the continual whoring of this whore, this alluring mistress of sorcery, who sells nations with her whoring and families with her sorcery. I am against you, says Adonai. I will uncover your skirts on your face. I will show the nations your private parts, and the kingdoms your shame. I will pelt you with disgusting filth, disgrace you, and make you a spectacle of you. Then all who see you will recoil from you. They will say, Nineveh is destroyed. Who will mourn for her? Where can I find people to comfort you? Are you any better than Noammon, located among the streams of the Nile? With water all around her, the flood her wall of defense. Ethiopia and Egypt gave her boundless strength. Put and Luvim were there to help you. Still, she went captive into exile, her infants torn to pieces at every street corner. Lots were drawn for her nobles, and all her great men were bound in chains. You too, Nineveh, will be drunk, your senses completely overcome. You too will seek a refuge from the enemy. All your fortifications will be like fig trees with early ripening figs. The moment they are shaken, they fall into the mouth of the eater. Look at your troops, they behave like women. Your country's gates are wide open to your foes. Fires consumed their bars. Draw water for the siege, strengthen your fortifications, go down in the clay, tread the mortar, take hold of the mold for bricks. There the fire will burn you up, and the sword will cut you down. It will devour you like grasshoppers. I'll stop there. So Nahum's speaking to the judgment of Nineveh, which is the capital of Assyria. So the downfall of Assyria. So what does this have to do with mercy? Well, Assyria is basically returning to its modus operandi. And I say that because if we turn to Jonah, some more reading. I had Jonah marked here. Where did it go?
Perish the thought.
So Jonah chapter 1. The word of Adonai came to Jonah, the son of Amittai, set out for the great city of Nineveh, and proclaimed to it that their wickedness had come to my attention. But Jonah, in order to get away from Adonai, prepared to escape to Tarshish. He went down to Yappho, found a ship headed for Tarshish, paid the fare, and went aboard, intending to travel with them to Tarshish and get away from Adonai. However, Adonai let loose over the sea a violent wind which created such stormy conditions that the ship threatened to break to pieces. The sailors were frightened, and each cried out to his God. They threw the cargo overboard to make the ship easier for them to control. Meanwhile, Jonah had gone down below into the hold, where he lay fast asleep. The ship's captain found him and said to him, "What do you mean by sleeping? Get up, call on your God. Maybe the God will remember us, and we won't die." Then they said to each other, "Come, let's draw lots to find out who is to blame for this calamity." They drew lots, and Jonah was singled out. They said to him, "Tell us now, why has this calamity come upon us? What work do you do? Where are you from? What is your country? What is your people?" He answered them, "I am a Hebrew, and I fear Adonai, the God of heaven, who made both sea and the dry land." At this the men grew very afraid and said to him, "What is this that you have done?" For the men knew he was trying to get away from Adonai, since he told them. And they asked him, "What should we do to you so that the sea will be calm for us?" For the sea was getting rougher all the time. Pick me up," he told them, "and throw me into the sea. And then the sea will be calm for you, because I know it's my fault that this terrible storm has come over you." Nevertheless, the men rowed hard, trying to reach the shore, but they couldn't because the sea kept growing wilder against them. Finally, they cried to Adonai, "Please, Adonai, please, don't let us perish for causing the death of this man, and don't hold us to account for shedding innocent blood, because you, Adonai, have done what you saw fit." Then they picked up Jonah and threw him into the sea, and the sea stopped raging. Seized with great fear of Adonai, they offered a sacrifice to Adonai and made vows. And then Adonai prepared a huge fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish for 3 days and 3 nights. From the belly of the fish Jonah prayed to Adonai his God. He said, "From the belly of Sheol I cried, and you heard my voice. For you threw me into the deep, into the heart of the seas, and the flood enveloped me. All your surging waves passed over me. I thought, I have been banished from your sight, but I will again look at your holy temple. The water surrounded me, threatened my life. The deep closed over me, seaweed twined around my head. I was going down to the bottoms of the mountains, to a land whose bars would close me in forever. But you brought me up alive from the pit, Adonai my God. As my life was ebbing away, I remembered Adonai, and my prayer came into you, into your holy temple. Those who worship vain idols give up their source of mercy. But I, speaking my thanks aloud, will sacrifice to you what I have vowed I will pay. Salvation comes from Adonai." Then Adonai spoke to the fish, and it vomited Jonah out onto dry land. The word of Adonai came to Jonah a second time. "Set out for the great city of Nineveh, and proclaim to it the message I will give you." So Jonah set out and went to Nineveh, as Adonai had said. Now Nineveh was such a large city that it took 3 days just to cross it. Jonah began his entry into the city and had finished only his first day of proclaiming, "In 40 days Nineveh will be overthrown." And when the people of Nineveh believed God, they proclaimed a fast and put on sackcloth, from the greatest of them to the least. When the news reached the king of Nineveh, he got up from his throne, took off his robe, put on sackcloth, and sat in ashes. He then had this proclamation made through Nineveh: "By decree of the king and his nobles, no person or animal, herd or flock, is to put anything in his mouth. They are neither to eat nor drink water. They must be covered with sackcloth, both people and animals, and they are to cry out to God with all their might. Let each of them turn from his evil way and from the violence they practice. Who knows, maybe God will change his mind, relent and turn from his fierce anger, and then we won't perish." When God saw by their deeds that they had turned from their evil way, he relented and did not bring on them the punishment he had threatened. But this was very displeasing to Jonah, and he became angry. He prayed to Adonai out. "Now Adonai, didn't I say this would happen when I was still in my own country? That's why I tried to get away to Tarshish ahead of time. I knew you were a God who is merciful and compassionate, slow to anger and rich in grace, and that you relent from inflicting punishment. Therefore, Adonai, please just take my life away from me. It's better for me to be dead than alive." Adonai asked, "Is it right for you to be so angry?" And Jonah left the city and found a place east of the city where he made himself a shelter and sat down under it. Oh, I forgot the clicker. Screwed up my vibe here. Where he made himself a shelter and sat down under it, in its shade, to see what would happen to the city. And Adonai God prepared a castor bean plant. For those green thumbs like me, that's a castor plant. Castor bean plant, and made it grow up over Jonah to shade his head and relieve his discomfort.
That's a big one in the middle.
Yeah. So Jonah was delighted with the castor bean plant, but at dawn the next day God prepared a worm, which attacked the castor bean plant, so that it dried up. Then when the sun rose, God prepared a scorching east wind, and the sun beat down on Jonah's head so hard that he grew faint and begged that he could die, saying, "I would be better off dead than alive." And God asked Jonah, "Is it right for you to be so angry about the castor bean plant?" He answered, "Yes, it's right for me to be so angry that I could die." And I said, you're concerned over the castor bean plant, which cost you no effort. You didn't make it grow. It came up in the night and perished in the night. So shouldn't I be concerned about the great city of Nineveh, in which there are more than 120,000 people who don't know their right hand from their left, not to mention all the animals? So why did Jonah flee? What do you say? Yeah, he knew God was merciful.
Does he flee because he knows God is merciful, so God would forgive him for running away? Or does he flee because he knows that I don't want Nineveh to be forgiven, so I'm not going to bring the message in the first place?
The latter.
Or is it both?
Because Assyria was already encroaching on the northern kingdom, Israel, so they were already in a conflict. And given the phrases that we read in Nahum, two stood out to me, where it describes Nineveh as the city of blood and the city that continually whores as a whore. So if you remember, if you, Assyria is a nation, or was a nation, that conducted an extreme paganism. So they sacrificed children. If you remember, the king of Judah adopted a lot of their practices and actually sacrificed his son to fire. He when he traveled to Assyria to incite help from Assyria, because Israel was approaching Judah to attack them. So the king of Judah reached out to Assyria, gave him all the gold and silver from the temple, and when he was there in Damascus, he saw how beautiful and amazing their pagan temple was, and he came back and reconstructed the same temple in Jerusalem. So they had a lot of influence in Judah. They practice in extreme paganism. They use fear as their primary tool to conquer nations. They would decapitate their prisoners with a dull knife, just to give you some visualization on the kind of nation they were. They would let vultures eat the eyes and entrails of their captives that were still alive. They would flay and amputate bodies and use the hands, fingers, noses, and ears as decoration pieces on the walls of the palaces of the places they would defeat. In Nineveh, they would have peeled skin from prisoners hung on the walls of the palace. They would stack bodies to make walls at the entry points of the cities. And they would also construct pyramids with the heads of conquered people, and would hang the heads on ornaments around the cities and in the trees and the fields. So a very violent nation. And this is during and after Jonah's time. So you can understand why, from a human aspect, why Jonah is reluctant for them to receive mercy. This is the way they treat the people they conquer. And then the people they don't kill, they force them to practice the Assyrian religion. They enslave them. They control all their agriculture. But yet, just to show how merciful God is, they have given the warning of Jonah, they turned from their way. The king at the time, which there's debate whether or not this is the actual king of Syria, because it uses the Aramaic word milk, MLK. They don't have vowels, but it's the Hebrew word melech, which also means governor. So it could have been a local governor of Nineveh. But regardless, the king or governor and his people are converted, right, by the message that Jonah provides. So this is the kind of nation that God offers mercy to. And then obviously, as we read in Nahum, they revert back to their old ways. New king comes, and final judgment is called down upon them, which Babylon would be the tool for that. It got me thinking, well, when I was just contemplating the mercy of God, and kind of made me self-analyze my reaction to there's been people on the news that have, that are, actually literally crying that they lost their job in their federal jobs. And, my immediate sarcastic reaction is, well, welcome to the private sector, where every week you never know if you're going to need your cardboard box to carry your stuff out. But then I thought about it, and I was like, well, that's...
If the pay was the same, I would agree with you.
Huh?
I guess if the pay was the same, I would agree.
Yeah. Well, and that's,
Civil service is a service, right?
thinking about my attitude to that, I'm like, well, it's never that they've established a life around their job, right? They've had a secure job, they've established a life around it. It's never pleasant when I'm sure Anna and Corey are experiencing something similar. It can be very worrisome, especially when you don't know God. There's a lot of unknown, there's a lot of anxiety. Your life it's scary how central your job is to your life, because you build up your life based on what you accomplish at your job. The more money you make, you think you would just continue with status quo of your life, but we tend to acquire more things, nicer things, and then the bigger the hit when we lose that job. So just made me rethink my attitude to what those people are going through, which was good. So similar to Jonah, we have a similar message to provide, right? This is the power and importance, similar to Jonah, the power and importance of the message that we carry. It can also save lives. It can save communities. It can save even nations. It has the power to do that. The message of the kingdom, right? The gospel. It's no wonder why Matthew 13 likens it to a treasure and a valuable pearl. And the consequences of not doing anything with it are extensive, as described in the parable of the talents. So having both mercy and sharing that mercy with other people. All right. Back to Matthew 5. Any comments or questions so far? No, it's a lot of reading. All right. Poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are those who are meek. Blessed are those who are hunger in righteousness. And blessed are those who show mercy. And now, how blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. What does it mean to you to be pure in heart? What does that mean to you? What's that?
Use our hearts wisely.
Use your hearts wisely.
Yes.
To want the same things that God would want.
To have the same things God wants.
Make your actions and your thoughts and your motives aligned with.
Okay. Yeah.
Say clear conscience.
Clear conscious.
Heart is the mind in Hebrew.
Right.
Pure heart. Pure mind, a clear mind.
Clear mind. I like Psalm 73. Psalm 73 kind of portrays to me someone who both has a pure heart and who doesn't. Psalm 73, a psalm of Asaph. How good God is to Israel, to those who are pure in heart. But as for me, I lost my balance. My feet nearly slipped when I grew envious of the arrogant and saw how the wicked prosper. For when their death comes, it is painless, and meanwhile their bodies are healthy. They don't have ordinary people problems, and they aren't plagued like others. So for them, pride is a necklace, and violence clothes them like a robe. Their eyes peep out through folds of fat. Evil thoughts overflow from their hearts. They scoff and speak with malice. They loftily utter threats. They set their mouths against heaven. Their tongues swagger through the earth. Therefore his people return here and thoughtlessly suck up that whole cup of water. Then they ask, how does God know? How does the Most High really have knowledge? Yes, this is what the wicked are like. Those free of misfortune keep increasing their wealth. It's all for nothing that I've kept my heart clean and washed my hands, staying free of guilt. For all day long I am plagued. My punishment comes every morning. If I had said, I will talk like them, I would have betrayed a generation of your children. When I tried to understand all this, I found it too hard for me, until I went into the sanctuaries of God and grasped what their destiny would be. Indeed, you place them on a slippery slope and make them fall to their ruin. How suddenly they are destroyed, swept away by terrors. They are like a dream when one awakens. Adonai, when you rouse yourself, you will despise their plans. And when I had a sour attitude and felt stung by pained emotions, I was too stupid to understand. I was like a brute beast with you. Nevertheless, I am always with you. You hold my right hand. You will guide me with your advice, and afterwards you will receive me with honor. Whom do I have in heaven but you? And with you I lack nothing on earth. My mind and my body may fail, but God is the rock of my mind and my portion forever. Those who are far from you will perish. You destroy all who adulterously leave you. But for me, the nearness of God is my good. I have made Adonai Elohim my refuge so that I can tell of all your works. So to me, this is a individual who has realized that he's looking at people as a victim, right? Through victim's eyes. He sees these people succeeding even in their wickedness, and he looks at them through envy. Yeah. I've been doing what's right, but those people have wealth and success. I've been doing what's right, but every day I am plagued and every morning I'm punished. I deserve what they have and what they've accomplished. I have kept my heart clean, not seeking the same things, but it appears to have been for nothing. What do I have to show for it? I deserve what they got. If only I had decided to be like them, I wouldn't have to go through this. So, yeah, I think that's an aspect too of purity of heart, right? Looking at those who are successful, more successful than me, but get to live their life the way they want. Get to partake in the wicked things that I used to want to take part of. But looking at those things and not in envy, but with a pure heart. And also having a purity of heart is getting to a place where we have no hostility towards God. James 4 does a good job of describing that. James 4. What is causing all the quarrels and fights among you? Isn't it your desires battling inside you? You desire things and don't have them. You kill and you are jealous, and you still can't get them. So you fight and quarrel. The reason you don't have is that you don't pray. Or you pray and don't receive because you pray with the wrong motive, that of wanting to indulge your own desires. You unfaithful wives, don't you know that loving the world is hating God? Whoever chooses to be the world's friend makes himself God's enemy. Or do you suppose the Scripture speaks in vain when it says that there is a spirit in us which longs to envy? There's a spirit in us that longs to envy. But the grace he gives us is greater, which is why it says, God opposes the arrogant, but to the humble he gives grace. Therefore submit to God. Moreover, take a stand against the adversary, and he will flee from you. Come close to God, and he will come close to you. Clean your hands, sinner, and purify your hearts, you double-minded people. Wail, mourn, sob, let your laughter be turned into mourning, and your joy into gloom. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up. So, again, going back to the blessed those who mourn, a realization of how impure our heart is and how in need we are of God to purify our heart and break down that barrier between us and God. I'll stop there. Okay. Any comments, questions? So next weekend, Lord willing, we'll pick up in verse, so we got those who make peace, those who are persecuted, so we'll continue back in Matthew chapter 5.